Hey everybody, welcome to Wing Talk. This is a very special episode. We have some special guests, and we're really excited to talk to them today. So I'm going to just jump right into our hosts so we can get to talking to these guys. Hey, what is going on, Darren?
Yeah, everything's good, but who cares about me today? We've got some awesome guests. I just want to get chatting to them guys.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to talking to Americans, because usually I come on here and I talk to British guys. You know, and
Yeah.
speaking of British guys, one's missing today. Luke is on camping or something like that.
Yeah, he's out in the wilderness doing his Bear Grylls impressions, and yeah. So it'd be like a little baby running around, I guess.
Well, I'm really excited. This is the special Kate Upton episode. So we're going to have Kate here. We're going to be asking her questions about INAV, and then she's going to be dancing the cat daddy dance whenever she gets the questions wrong. The first question I have is, how many LEDs does INAV control? So let's see if she knows that pretty well. Mark, what's going on with you, babes?
Yeah, hi guys. Everything is fine for me. Looking forward to a great talk as always. And yeah, I'm really curious about our special guests. And yeah, as you can see, I'm experimenting with a little bit green screen magic here, and I hope you guys like it.
I love it. Love it. Love it. Yeah, this is great. I just got to know that Kate Upton will not be joining us today. But in place, we got some special guests, fellow Americans here, other Americans. We have guys that, if you know FPV, if you are into flying at all, once you get past, you've gone through all the Chinese model planes, and then somebody brings a Drak, a Nano Drak, a Mini Drak to the field, you're like, oh my freaking Lord, what is this thing? I need it. I want this in my life. And, I really want to get these guys on for quite a while here, because I get emails from people, who write me in the middle of the night. They're like, Steve, I need to get my hands on a Mini Drak. And these guys say we need to sell like 350 of them so I can get mine. So can you help me sell another 349? And okay, we're going to find all about that today, about the Mini Draks. There's also the Nano Drak, which was one of the best planes that we have. Hit the top 21. I forget what rank it was. It was up there. So these planes are legendary, but there's a whole story behind them, and we're going to find out all about them. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we have Chris Click today from RiteWing, and we also have his buddy, our fellow member. Both these guys are members of the group, but Erik. I can't pronounce your last name, Erik.
Abbadessa.
Abbadessa, that's right.
Abbadessa.
All right, Erik Abbadessa. And Erik he's got a really interesting background as well, so we're going to find out all about him. And I wanted to, we should start off with you first, Erik, because just so people know who you are. As I recall, first of all, Erik is a fellow father of twins. He has twin sons. How old are they now?
10 months.
10 months old, yeah. So mine are a little bit older. They're almost 25. And they don't no longer. What the cool news about having kids that are twins this age is just last year they were able to get out the car seats. So
that's funny. We're still putting them in ours. We're still fitting them in nice and snug.
Yeah, what happens is every year when you get car seats, they say, okay, you have to be 5 years of 50 pounds, then 6 years and 60 pounds. They keep bringing it up. Finally, it's kind of like once you hit age 25, you're out of car seats, whatever weight you want.
And then you're paying for college, right?
Yeah, after 25, you're done with college. So yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's
true. So you're still paying.
So you're paying for car seats and college at the same time. That's a double whammy.
So cool. Erik, tell us about your background. I know nobody who flies these planes better than you do. When we see your videos of you flying the Mini Drak, it's like butter. So you have some secrets, and I can tell you right now, Mark is going to be freaking out by some of the things you're going to say, which is going to be fine.
I know he is.
Yeah, I just want to say, when I first heard about Erik, it was quite a few years ago now. It was on the Ragnar Nuts group, Facebook group, when that was still going on. And I just remember a video. I'm sure it was like on a motocross course or something. There was loads of bounces, and it's just so smooth. Absolutely silky smooth flying. Yeah.
Well, I thank you for that. It's been fun flying RiteWing. I can say that. Do you want me to kind of start from the beginning? I can kind of make it brief if you like.
Yeah, there's like the quad beginning, and I mean you have like you're the PID expert, so you've got some black magic things with PIDs going on, and people want to know about this and kind of like who you are and why you're so important to the flying community.
Okay, so around 2010, I started flying mini quads. It was black in the blackout days. I said black. It was back in the blackout days. Everybody was running 3S. 4S wasn't even a thing. I happened to contact a guy named Richard Shelton in California who made multi-copter builders. He did nothing but fly 5S at the time, and he started, I believe, in 2005, 2004, like at the very, very beginning of mini quads. And basically, I started in with mini quads doing that. Now, I'm a camera operator, and I do production as a profession. So the first thing, and I've always kind of been around RC. My stepfather flew planes when I was 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. So I've always been around the field. Being a camera operator, I started to say, that was when the first GoPros were coming out, and I got the first Phantom, the Phantom 1, without any, it didn't have any GoPro or anything on it. And after about 2 weeks, I was like, you know what, this is cool. And I got it for, setup shots to do kind of like jib moves and stuff. I wanted to go faster and farther and higher.
Can I interrupt you for a quick second? I wanted to know, when you said that you're a cameraman, so you do motion picture camera work?
Yes, I do broadcast stuff. I do sports. I do corporate events. I don't do films. I have done a couple documentaries, but most of my stuff is broadcast sports and the like. And
then also, when you mentioned the Phantom, that's the DJI Phantom. I mean, everyone's kind of familiar with the Phantom 3, the Phantom 4s, that type of thing. This is the first Phantom I'm talking about.
Yeah, so the first one did not have a camera. It had a barometer, so it did do it did hover and it would stay there, but it was basically that and GPS with no camera. And then we put cameras on them, and that kind of started that whole thing. So I ended up after about a month, I contacted Richard Shelton. He said that he was flying mini quads. This is right after the fan wheel, the DJI fan wheels. That I'm not going to bore you with stuff, but that's basically where everything was going. And he started coming out. He came out with a 6-inch quad. So while everybody's flying 5-inch and 3 cell, I contacted him, and he goes, "Here's what you need. I'll sell it to you." And I got it. I didn't even know how to balance a battery, but he sent me 4 batteries and the quad was a 6-inch on HQ 6x4 props, 6x4.5 on 5 cell. So, and that was when KK2 boards were just phasing out, and the Naze 5s, the Naze Rev 5s were starting to come in. So we were still on clean flight then, and actually it was base flight and clean flight, and then it kind of branched off from there.
Like 2014, 2013 timeframe.
Yeah, actually, I remember the first drone nationals. I didn't go to them, but I'd been flying for about 2 years previous to that. So it was before One Shot came out on ESC, so it was just straight PWM and PWM and PPM, and the cameras were like this big on the front of the quads and everything else. So the main thing then was to get 6-inch. Like how it started with the PIDs and flight controllers was, we tried to get them to fly as smooth as we could. And back then, you were rocking an 8-bit processor, flight controller that, I mean, if you were lucky to get one hertz of loop time, you know what I mean? And people weren't even doing one kilohertz at the time, or 1 hertz. So that was the gist of it. So I'll fast forward about 6 or 7 years. Then all of a sudden, Kalen Dewar, who created One Shot, who also created Race Flight, he branched off of Beta Flight to do Race Flight, but then that whole debacle, and then they came up with a clean code for Race Flight. Like it was not associated, not open source, not anything. And I remember going to, I got married 5 years ago, and I was in Hawaii with my wife for our honeymoon, and I brought my mini quad, and I received the first alpha firmware for race flight. And quick story, it'll take about a minute and a half, but so I call up Kalen and I'm like, hey Kalen, there's no PIDs. Like when I put the software on there, there was nothing, and we were still doing the CC3D boards for race flight at the time. And he said, well, the reason why there's not is because we don't know where to start. And I'm like, is this family friendly, or can I say a couple of like shit and stuff? Is that okay?
I guess kids.
Okay, so
earmuffs.
So basically, I said crap. Okay, so what are my parameters? And he said, it's basically plus $1 million and minus $1 million. And I'm like, what? And he said, yeah, on the PID flight controllers or on anything, if you don't, before you put the dividers in, you have essentially $1 million positive and $1 million negative. He said, so put on some cheap props and let us know how it goes. So to fast forward that, it took me about 3 months, and I kind of, how you rough it in, I know these guys probably know a little bit, but you start at one thing, and if it starts getting better, you know you're kind of in the ballpark. So I would go 10,000, 20,000, 40,000, 60,000, 100,000, 500,000. Once I started getting there, they would put in dividers in the code, and the dividers would actually make it to where it was 1 to 100 instead of 1 to 1 million, so on and so forth. So that was with P's, with I's, and with D's. And I had my work cut out for me for the next 3 months. So that was that inside of the mini quad stuff. So I did that for another 1.5 years, 2 years. And I even got to the point where I was tuning a little bit of schizo stuff that flew mini quads. We were on Discord, and, actually it was before Discord. It was something else, Slack. And so we would all talk, and we had this big community of alpha testers for race flight. And then I got to the point and I was like, you know what? I want to fly wings. I'm tired of mini quads. And this was around the same time where everybody was starting to building dive and everything else. And I'm not gonna be negative about it. It just wasn't for me with mini quads. I didn't want to be a part, even though it's cool looking and all of that stuff. That just wasn't me. So I wanted to get a plane. I wanted to get a wing. And so I talked to one of my buddies who used to be a mini quad racer as well, Josh Slager, and he basically had a hardcore 44 RiteWing. And I said, hey, I want to get a RiteWing Mini Drak. And I just talked to Chris Click about it. He goes, dude, I'll sell you my hardcore. It's got everything in it, the same thing that they use for the Mini Drak. As a matter of fact, I'll give it to you. You just got to meet me like 30 minutes away. He said, the frame's a pile of crap because I've crashed it a couple times, but all in all, it's fine. So I went, I drove, I picked it up, said thanks, whatever. He was doing other things, started working a lot, so he couldn't fly. And I brought it to John Kennedy, and John Kennedy is an old school RiteWing pilot who still flies and moved to Tennessee and stuff. And he looked at me, he goes, dude, this wing is perfect. Yeah, it's been crashed a time or two, but everything's perfect on it. So I was like, all right, let me call up Chris and get electronics for this Mini Drak that I just bought too. So right off the bat, my first plane was a hardcore 44 and a RiteWing Mini Drak.
Wow. Awesome.
And that was 4.5 years ago, 4.5, 5 years ago.
Okay, cool. And then your flight, you've been using INAV for how long?
I've been using INAV since 4.5, 5 years ago on certain wings. I started off, I think, with 1.8. And so that's when I started using INAV. I put that in my Mini Drak. And that's what I started flying with. And I kind of fell in love with it because, knowing where I came from and the testing that I did, and I knew a lot of the inside people in the mini quad industry, I knew that INAV was a fork off of Betaflight. I knew that Betaflight Boris never wanted to fix the GPS code, didn't care about it. And this isn't me ragging on anybody. This is like, he was specifically 5-inch quads. And as soon as I found out that INAV basically took that fork and fixed the GPS code, I was like, that's a win-win situation between that and the OSD. You know, that's what I wanted. So I started flying it from there.
Hey, Mark, you have a question?
No, all good, all good.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Clean Flight is INAV is a branch of Clean Flight, and it came off. Yeah, the Beta Flight was on a different branch, but yeah, there we both came Clean Flight. So perfect. All right. Well, that's cool. So you've been flying. The RiteWings are your favorite planes, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. They are. All right. So now we're gonna find out about Chris, and we're gonna find out the background. It kind of like, I mean, you know, when you become a legend in the industry, you kind of like people. Sometimes we get a lot of people in this group who are just like into their first plane right now. They're still on the Chinese planes, and they want to know more about this. So there's a lot of people who are absolutely green watching right now, and there's a lot of people who know exactly who Chris is and everything else. So if you wouldn't mind, kind of give us the background of who you are and how you got started in this whole thing, Chris.
Oh, at this point, being, I think, what, 54 years old, I was modeling and flying control line probably maybe in 81, 82, flying control line, and my parents owned a couple acres. So I would round the yard. I mean, I literally had enough room in my yard. But even before that, my dad, when I was a young, I mean, like in the 70s, I was born in 67. So in the mid 70s, he was buying Estes control line stuff. And he had a couple big models he wouldn't fly because he took a year to build them and then wouldn't fly them. Yeah. So he started buying small stuff for me, and I was deathly afraid of it. I was like, every time we went out, I thought my dad was going to cut his finger off because he was flipping the prop, trying to get it going, scared the crud out of me. So after he finally tried to make me do it, I'm like, I'm never doing that. And then when we finally moved years later to some acreage, when I actually was really a little bit older, where things didn't like scare the crud out of me as a kid, I started actually building my own balsa kits, spending all my allowance going to the stores and buying Dumas Chuck gliders and balsa control line stuff, no plastic, just all balsa stuff, and just building it all myself. And one of my favorite things to do is buying Chuck gliders from Gillows. And I ended up just doing that forever, to where it would just drive my dad nuts because I had mess stuff everywhere. And then I ended up going to high school and getting older, and then getting out of it, and not doing it anything through the 80s. You know, I think I graduated in 86. I didn't touch any model stuff. I did maybe some remote control cars, maybe at the end of 86, and that was about it. And then I think mid 90s, I started thinking I'm going to try to get back into it. And I was watching the electric NiCad batteries getting better. I was like, wow, we can get 500 milliamps out of these things, and you know, we can push 16 amps out of these on a Speed 400 electric motor with brushed ESCs. So we were, and I think right in the late 90s, the Zaggies came out.
Yeah.
So I was going to the hobby shop, and we were buying Speed 400 motor planes like the Zaggy, and I was flying those things, and I was doing the same thing like Erik was talking about. Everybody was running 8 or 9 cells of NiCads. I turned around, I was adding cells, going faster, burning up motors, doing stupid things, and I started putting car motors, 35 millimeter brushed car motors, on planes, and doing just stupid stuff with subsea batteries, and then everybody around where I live, they were flying things, but nothing like this. And I was just, I finally learned how to fly, and I was doing a lot of fun, crazy stuff. And, at that point, I just kept with it.
I'm going to jump in really quick here. So
okay.
Control line stuff is basically, I mean, there are kids who have no idea what the hell control line is. Basically, but I had one as a kid. So that was instead of radio control planes, I mean, they were so damn expensive back when we were kids. You're only a couple years younger than me. That, what you got, it was the poor man's radio control plane, which was basically a plane that was on strings. And you would sit there and you would move the string back and forth, and it would move the elevator, so it would go up and down. And so, and there are guys who still fly these things now, but now what you had to do is you had to go around in circles back then if you didn't know how to fly. And you would be so dizzy by the time you're done. You feel like throwing up. Because and then now you go to there's places that there's a field that has control line and it's completely closed in, but fenced in, and then the guys sit there and like they never move. They just sit there and get the planes flying all over the place.
Yeah, you can. I mean, a lot of the control line stuff, you know, we would do combat. We would make our own airfoil, and the only thing that was back on the airfoil was a rudder that made it go hard right, so it kept the string straight, and then a massive elevator, and you could literally fly it. You wouldn't have to go in circles. You could fly it right in your face with somebody else and chop each other up. But we would do stuff like that. So if you didn't want to get dizzy that day, you could actually fly with somebody, or when you flew your plane, go around a couple times and then just do combat right in front of yourself. But I mean, you know, RC planes back then, they were really expensive.
Oh yeah.
I had a good friend down the street that his dad, after my dad kind of gave up on trying to teach me, but when I started to get back into it, my friend's dad down the street, he started getting into the remote control planes and spending years building big Bearcats and these crazy models. And he would have me as a kid go down and, you know, fly with him. I wouldn't do any flying, but I would always go with him and watch him fly these planes. So I always said to myself later in life, I want to fly RC. So I think in the late 90s, when I started seeing the battery stuff come back, I got through my, you know, being super young, 25, 26 years old, and started wanting to get into some hobbies. It was very, you know, with the battery and the new technology coming in, calling Speed 400 technology, but it's just gone absolutely crazy. And I worked on all kinds of different type of flying wings models. I did other models. I did stuff that you could buy in the store, and I did other different types of models, but I always went back to the flying wings.
Oh,
and it's because they go ahead.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but you also mentioned Zaggy. And so if you're going to talk about the history, you got to, that deserves a place in history. Actually, one of my friends was the guy who helped out. The Zaggy was basically made with packaging material. So it was a wing that was cut out of styrofoam. And the one I have, the 400, has a tiny bit of EPP foam at the very front of the leading edge, right? So you've got like a 1/4 inch of EPP foam, and the rest of it is packaging styrofoam. And these things sold for like $150, right?
Oh, they were pretty. Yeah, I think I was buying kits for $130 for those, and I think they cut maybe a 1/2 inch to 1 inch leading edge of EPP on them, because EPP was expensive even back then, and styrene was a lot cheaper. So they learned how to make a process to actually make the leading edge, and that was their claim to fame, was they had a leading edge that was very durable. And the planes, all in all, were, you know, they were pretty durable. But as far as, you know, learning on something, they were really good to learn on, because they didn't fly themselves. So if you actually got to where you could fly them, you had to fly them left, right, up, and down. They never flew themselves. They never righted themselves. But they flew like, you know, when you're learning, they flew like a jet. They gave you that exhilaration. They gave you that point and shoot type of flying that you could go out and fly a trainer all day long and it does whatever it wants. But once you learn how to fly it, they're just boring. So, you know, I flew the Zaggies for a while, and I just kept saying, you know, and I kept trying to modify them and doing all I could. And then I just found I kept hitting a wall and not being able to really get the performance out of them that I needed. And then I bumped into a company called Wing Warrior. I don't know if you know Tom Freese from Wing Warrior. He's out of California. They used to do a lot of sloping and electric flying along Dog Beach, just kind of, I think, just north of Newport and Huntington.
Oh, okay. Huntington, yeah.
Yeah. So I found that they had full wings cut out of EPP. So now the whole plane was durable.
That's insane, right?
Yeah, right. And now you're like, oh my gosh. So I started buying some of those planes and doing some Speed 400 electric on them. And then I also started doing sloping, because I always loved gliders. And when you learn gliders, you learn CG, you learn how to use the wind. You know, it's like, now you're sloping, and now we're flying Speed 400 electric. And all of a sudden the Astro 010 motor comes out with Castle Creations 25 amp speed controller. And it was a package where you can buy, it was like $140, crazy expensive for a little tiny can motor that Astro came out, but it produced 10 times more powerful than anything else available out there. And next thing you know, every single one of your planes had those in there. that changed the world right there. The Astro 010 with a 3-phase motor on it, and the Castle 25 speed control Phoenix.
This must have been around early 2000s then, right?
Right. I think it was right around 2000. 2000. Astro Bob came out with that motor. It changed the whole industry. Wow. He's the guy. Yeah, I think he's the guy also made the Dean's. No, it wasn't the Dean's connector. Maybe it was the Dean's connectors, but he absolutely changed the complete industry, because now you have these airfoils that were gliders that were slick, that made to be efficient. Now we're putting these fast motors on them, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy.
So was that was a brushless motor, or was that a brush motor?
Brushless. It
wow,
was
okay,
like
so that's like the first brushless motor, because the Zaggies, you had the brush motors on there.
Yeah, so I switched and I started putting those motors on the planes from planes from Wing Warrior, and they started going really fast. But the problem is now we're flying them and we're folding them. Now you have to build them really straight, because the faster they go, they fly terrible. So now I come up with the process. And then I also started taking their planes and modifying and clipping them down and doing all kinds of crazy things so I can get the most amount of speed and power and handling out of these. After doing that, Wing Warrior was wondering why I was ordering 10, 20 planes at a time. And I got, and then they started watching some of the videos on RC groups where we were making their planes do fast things. Like, they never seen their planes go that fast. So they said, what are you doing with these? And I kind of, told them what I was doing. They said, how would you like to maybe be like a team pilot and help us expose these? You're already helping us sell a whole bunch of them. I said, all right, that sounds like fun. They're like, and you can get a crazy discount on planes. I'm like, well, that works. So next thing I know, I worked with them. I was working with them for a little bit. But the first thing, right before that happened, I went to, they invited me to San Diego because they had somebody out there that said, this guy out here in San Diego says he's got faster wings than you. So they actually had us had a wing race. And this is all before FPV. So they had to start shooting, taking our custom Wing Warrior planes and racing each other. And my planes were fast. They were so fast. And next thing you know, they're like, okay, come work with us. So I did for a few years. And then we started designing a few model aircraft with them. And I kept thinking I wanted to do more. And I think it was around 2004, maybe 2005, I talked to them. They were having some internal problems, and I ended up just getting my own cutting with some help of some friends, getting all my own cutting equipment and figuring it all out. And just started with my own airfoils, and then kept making my own airfoils, and then taking existing airfoils and tweaking them, and then doing just research after research and flight after flight. And then I just been able to come up with a whole line of models just by flying everything, tweaking everything, watching the market, with the advent of FPV coming in. So, we would go to all these different events, and at the different events, people either loved you or hated you because you were so loud and obnoxious, or everybody had to have one. What do you think, Eric?
I just wanted to say one thing. I didn't mean to cut that off, but
that's okay.
I got the privilege of, and honestly, it is a privilege to see Chris fly for the first time two and a half years ago at CFL FPV, and he literally is the best pilot that I've ever seen. And he's modest. He's not going to say anything, but nighttime, daytime, anything, like, I swear to God, the guy can fly like a madman. So I am honored to be able to fly some wings that he's made, because it's an inspiration.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Eric.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I have a lot of work to do. I'm okay. I can fly. But one of my biggest passion is slope flying. So as far as when it comes to tuning and flying and making things, slick and efficient, I love, like slope. I got racks of slope planes in here. So this crosses over when it comes to making other types of aircraft to do other things. But having the capability of having the right tools, and then just going through all of these different types of planes and airfoils and flying everything line of sight and tuning it, the end user, especially when it comes to FPV, really gets a benefit because they get an aircraft that's been very well engineered and very, very slick. And I think flying things and being able to tweak these things as you go over a long period of time, you start creating a knowledge base that I can draw on all the time to be able to design aircraft on the fly that really work good. And it's just not starting out brand new in the trade. And you know, having people like Erik that will go in and fly the products, give me feedback, and having people like Erik over the years that can do that has been a huge benefit for me, because a lot of the times I come up with an idea, I'll hand it over to some of my friends, you know, if I can't get to flying, because now I'm finding that I have a lot of people come to me with ideas. So some of these ideas might not necessarily be mine off the get-go, and they say, hey, can you do something like this for this? And next thing I know, I'm taking things and making things for them to do things that it wasn't even my original idea. So Chris, having a whole group out there is really good.
There's a guy in Germany named Henrik who's full of ideas, and I'm sure you know who he is. He'll give you lots of good ideas. So
Henrik.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's got 3. He's a friend of the group, and he has right now. I think he has every model of Drak there is. I think he's got. So he's building all of them at the same time.
He needs to get a Megla Drak. There you go. There's a challenge.
You know, I've built 5 of those things. They're 65 inches, and I had somebody. They have double wide fuselages. I don't know if you saw the picture I had posted of me holding that one up in the chat or up on the INAV forum this morning. But I've done a lot of work, you know, probably for the like 6 or 8 years, because I've been able to take a lot of this knowledge and pass it over to utility type aircraft. So
I've done a lot of storm chasing stuff, haven't you?
Storm chasing, yeah. I mean, gosh, it's like when the spectral imaging market came for all of like the crop, you know, the crop imaging that the farmers have been wanting to use, and all the investors came forward with that. I've worked with a good handful of investors. Go ahead, bud.
So yeah, just speaking of Henrik, he put in a question in the chat. Chris, if you followed the chat, please give us a RiteWing composite slope glider fit for FPV.
A composite one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody would have to skin it, but we can do that. I'm not much into the composites, just because we get almost exactly away from what we're trying to get with EPP. But we could make a composite glider that, you know, that is based on some of my slope gliders that would do really well.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. So the utility market has been something that I've worked on now since probably 2011, 2012. Actually, probably even before that, because once we started making the Zephyr, when Trappy was using it, I saw Trappy doing things with Maxi Swifts. So I decided, you know, once the FPV started going, I decided to get Trappy some aircraft, because I saw them doing things with aircraft that they could really do better things with better aircraft. So I just started giving him some aircraft, and we started talking back and forth, and ended up building him a handful of things and sending it to him. And, you know, and he kind of kicked off as far as the FPV side of RiteWing. And then I was selling those, you know, to the market directly as the EPP versions, and then we finally molded the Z2 after that, because it was something people wanted to build fast. You know, they didn't want to have all the crazy time taken to build. So I molded that Z2 right here in Arizona, and gosh, that thing flew. I mean, it flew out the doors. It went. I think we sold probably like 5,000 of those things in short order.
The Zephyr is more. It's kind of like I don't know if we can pull up a photo of that. Darren, can I ask you a favor? Can you pull up a photo of the Zephyr and then share your screen so we can show the people? Yeah, that's more of a okay. Oh, Chris, Erik has one here.
That's a Z2.5, but it's still a Zephyr.
Yeah.
Okay.
56 inches.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's pretty much the original plan for them, but we made it out of a like EPO material here, so you can, you know, build it fast and in bulk. But back and forth over the years, I still have the molds for it. We haven't molded any for a while, but some of the purists that still want a Z2 have come back to me So I also reproduced it back again like I did when I first did it, and then we added some of the center fins and did some other modifications to it. So now it's even a little bit more advanced than even the molded version, but it's hot wire cut now.
Yeah, who's that guy in California? He has the it's like the Juggernaut.
Ruben.
Yes, Ruben. Yeah, he's so yeah, that's similar to his. I mean, this is a guy who who never really kind of branched out into, he never got into the online world, and so unfortunately, it's harder for him to sell planes because the following isn't quite there. Sweep Wings,
yeah, he's been a purist in his own product line, and he's done a really good job. But I think he's only taken on because I think he was always working full time, but he's always he's done his versions of these aircraft. Ruben's a great guy, and I've seen his aircraft all over for years, and he's got his whole group and his whole following, and and I think even back in the day, I think after talking to him before, he said I was definitely some of his inspiration. And then he's, that's what's nice about this hobby is people can grab a portion of what they like of it, go out and start something, that they want to do, and do it at whatever pace they think they can, handle or grow.
Yeah, we've got this hobby, and like for example, the top 21 planes of 2021. I didn't want to do anything that was ready to fly. It's something that you could literally just plug a battery or a receiver into. So I wanted to work on kits or things that you actually had to build, because there's something about this hobby. Since we were getting into INAV, you're going to be building the flight controllers anyway. And then we do talk about all the things. We talk about the motors. We talk about the servos. We talk about all these different things, then the airframe. And so it's very different because every Sunday I go out flying. I'm sorry, that's why I was late today. I was flying with the boys out in the field, and there's only like a handful of us who actually build their own planes. All the other guys pretty much buy stuff and right off the shelf. And some of these things are kind of like if they're so old that when they buy them that they break, you can't find parts for them anymore. And so it's a different thing altogether. When you get into the Horizon hobby kind of thing or things, and now we're getting these planes that are, like I'm starting to notice like Hobby King will come out with these planes that are technically perfect as far as the way they look. Even on the wings, you can see the struts on the wings. They've cut the cut in so perfectly, and they look beautiful. But this is a completely different kind of side of the hobby. So we've always been pushing the custom foam people, because custom foam is really, that is a completely different flying experience. And so, I'm sure you can explain that, right?
Exactly. That's kind of goes along with when, the description when I said that when I was flying for Wing Warrior and they couldn't keep up with what I was doing, I ended up having to change it, because the only way I was ever finding that I could get higher performance was not buying something that came in a box. It was something that either was cut by somebody, or you did it, or you modified it to take it to that next level to have that performance. It's everything that I ever did when it came to modeling. Yes, you can get a taste of it. Yes, you can buy an AR, whatever wing, or you can buy all these things, from Banggood. But you just you're not going to get that crazy performance unless you really go in and either modify it, you make something for yourself, because it's like there was a local guy here when I was flying a lot of these combat wings that we called them combat wings back then, when I was flying the Wing Warriors and making some of my aircraft. And he, this guy was a local guy, and he kind of scrapped through and cut some airfoils, and I bought a few from him, and he made a forward swept wing. And I think they called it the Bird of Prey. I don't know if you've ever seen that one. It was from Edge RC, and he made a forward swept wing and had a lot of forward sweep. Flew kind of quirky, but I always liked some of the characteristics that the forward swept wing had. Didn't roll at all. It just that's why if you look at the Drak, it has modified super wide wing tips as far as the control surfaces on the wing, so we can get it to actually roll. So I basically, there were some models that I had flown over the years, and I always said I can make this style of aircraft fly even better. So kind of the thought behind the Drak is I made a lot of slope planes that were forward swept. But when you're flying slope planes, you weren't having to do a lot of really fast movements because everything is more trying to keep the lift and stay underneath it. So over the years, flying the slope planes, I kind of was able to figure out how to make some forward swept planes fly really well. And then I started making them for the electrics and started really tweaking the airfoils and getting some of the sweep and the design correct to where you could, like now, you know, when you fly the Drak or the Mini Drak, any of them, you can even see some of the fast videos of the big Draks. They are turning these things on a dime, doing the craziest stuff with these. And with the for the forward swept wing, originally when I first flew all the forward swept models, they never flew like this. So basically we took the forward swept wing design and did a bunch of things to it that you can't, you know, that originally people weren't doing. So we just made like a kind of a bunch of design tweaks to make something better, but also give you that characteristic of the forward swept aircraft. You have the no stall characteristics in a lot of the super sharp turns, as long as you get this, you know, the CG right. But we were able to. It was never meant to be, you know, going 150, 180 miles an hour. It was meant to be, you know, maybe sub 130 and sweet spots in the 80 or 90 mile an hour range where, you know, where the FPV guys like to fly, where you can get great performance, great handling with something that can carry the weight. So, yeah, I mean, what kind of questions do you have about the Mini Drak? But, you know, as far as its lineage and your experiences with flying it.
Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead, Mark.
What you mentioned, that the Mini Drak or the Drak series in general is made for a specific sweet spot and not made for high top speed records. That's the kind of plane I like to call a speed cruiser, basically. Yes. So it's really a great plane to go. I have to think in kilometers per hour, but to go 100, 130, 150 kilometers per hour, low above the ground, and do great cinematic flying. And that's what I love to see also on YouTube videos, for example. And if you look at other planes, like, just let's take the Funjet for an example. The Funjet is made to be fast by design, but if you want to make it really stupidly fast, then of course you have to modify it still, because it starts to flutter because the soft foam and all that brittle stuff. And if you fly fast, okay, then you are fast, but it still doesn't fly nice. I would say it's jittery, it's bouncy all the time. So and yeah, basically all these speed cruisers are usually the planes I also like very much. I mean, there are some other manufacturers doing similar planes with similar flight characteristic, and I really love to fly this kind of stuff.
Yes, yeah. There is some super fast planes out there, but when you're trying to go, you know, I mean, I've had the Demon, excuse me, the Demon 40 in line of sight flying 215 miles an hour. So, you know, but that's not with antennas hanging on it. That's not with GoPros on the front of it. That's with, you know, carbon fiber winglets. That's with everything completely clean and smooth, buried servos, basically super slick. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, even
that's not completely,
yeah,
that's not slick, but it's still a Demon and it goes 180.
And then you're not hitting that wall like you will with some of the forward swept aircraft. And I've seen even the minis and the nanos hit well over 130, 140 miles an hour with no issues. But you start to get into a range where you have to have everything perfect.
Yeah,
is that sort of one of the other things that sort of inspired the plank version, because you've just brought out the plank wings, haven't you, for the Mini Drak? By the way, they fly like they're on rails. Absolutely awesome aircraft. Yeah, Abba's got some.
Erik, say something.
Yeah, these are the plank wings for the Mini Drak, and I also have them for the Nano Drak as well. And shuffling, and I know Steve knows this, but shuffling with twins, I haven't been able to actually laminate them in the last week, so I'm sorry, Chris, for that, but they are going on my plane.
Yeah,
no worries. And I've had a lot of requests lately, even in the last couple of years, for something in that plank in something fast like that. So, and we've done them. We've done them for the slope. We've used a lot of crazy different airfoils, you know, and made slope aircraft do well over 200 miles an hour in the DS type of, you know, settings. But that's not something I pushed and something I've really tried to sell, because there's not a major market. There's no major market there that supports it unless you can either mold it or produce it very efficient.
So is that something you think might change though? Because there's a lot of, I mean, looking on like the RiteWing group, for example, there's a lot of hype now with the KO motors, absolutely huge motors. I know Abba's run some in-runners in the past, haven't you? And
yes.
So there is a push towards speed. And I'm wondering if this is more something coming in the future.
Yes, I think. Well, I'm going to end. One reason I stuck these wings out there, and Erik has a set, and there's a handful out there. It's not because these are brand new airfoils, and I said, here, guys, try all of these out. These are airfoils. The Demon airfoil I sent you, I mean, the airfoil I sent you is different on that plank set than it is to the ones I set Scott for the Nano. So I'm getting feedback from both of you guys. And
I didn't know that.
I've made slopers out of these different airfoils on different aircraft, but I haven't made them powered before. So you guys are kind of the whole group is kind of a test bed right now to give me feedback on the Nano wings. I know the wings work great on gliders, so I know they work. It's not like I'm selling something that's never been tried. And all these airfoils I've used in other types of aircraft. So I'm getting that out there, and basically I'm trying to get you guys to give me some feedback, because if I am going to make a high-speed plank, I want feedback from you, and then I'm going to end up building some myself, and then we're going to go out and we're going to fly it. And then if I actually do cut and produce the Phoenix version, I'm going to use all of this feedback to do that, because you guys will do a little bit of different things than I do. So having some well-rounded feedback is going to work really well in the development of this. And we've done that on the Mini Draks, the Nano Draks, the Z3, which I didn't even mention, the Spades. You know, we've done this on I've actually, you know, all the planes that have been molded have actually been cut in hot wire form, really close into the geometry of the molded forms. And they've been out in anywhere from 30 to 60 different single aircraft that were handmade, or kits that were handmade for people to fly and test. So that's kind of the beginnings of these plank wings, is to let's get some feedback, because if we want to mold these, or we end up wanting to actually make an aircraft like this, this is the beginnings of it.
Erik, say something.
Yeah, the one thing that I was going to say when Chris was talking about having stuff stick out or anything like that to mess up or reduce or induce drag. Something that I learned from him 2.5 years ago at CFL. We were all hanging out. It was midday. Guy comes up and says, "Hey, you know, I have this Mini Drak, and I get a lot of wag. I get a lot of front wag." And Chris says, "Let me see your plane." So he takes his plane, and I swear to God, this is what Chris did. He takes it and he goes like this. He goes, your elevons. That is all you got to do is cut the bottom of your elevons. And the dude's like, what? And basically, where your elevons meet the trailing edge, a lot of people don't know this, but sometimes they'll stick a little lower from the bottom of the wing. And if you get that, that's where you get some wag. So is what Chris said is just shave them so it's like a 0.5 millimeter inside of that bed, and the thing flew like it was on rails. So those little things, those are some of the things that I've learned from Chris over the years to help make our planes, or not our like RiteWing, but any plane we fly, if it does have that wag, those are some tricks that I've learned from him, easy as hell to do, but I didn't even know that back then. So that's one thing that I wanted to bring up.
Small attention to detail. I mean, I could fly a plane and I can feel how it flies, and I can be like, you know what? I mean, you only need just a little bit of nose weight, or you know what? You're so heavy that this thing's falling out of the sky at landing. It's wagging at slow speeds. You know, basically taking something and completely tuning it. I've had a couple people come to me at events and say, hey, I had one guy a couple years back said, hey, I bought a TL50 from you and it flies horrible. Worst plane I ever bought. I flew it from him at the event. I grabbed it. I pulled some of his nose weight out. Took his elevons, did the same thing to we did to the bottom of yours, trimmed them out. I flew the plane, trimmed it out, handed it back to him. I took out about 50% of expo out of it because he was flying it like full stick and not hardly getting anything, and then all of a sudden too much. Handed it back to him, and it went from that day for the worst plane I've ever bought. Can't believe I wasted my money. Have this piece of junk too. I'm never selling this plane. This is the best plane I've ever flown. I can't believe this. You know what I mean? And it only takes and it only took me to fly it, because if I fly it, I can feel it. As soon as I feel it, and that's from everything, starting back in the control line days. You knew how things fly and having things balanced. But all in all, having been a line of sight pilot 4 years, knowing how to tweak and tune line of sight planes and knowing how things should fly has been very, very good for this whole line of aircraft over the years with FPV. Because people, if you have a good flying aircraft from the get-go and a good design from the get-go, and you can give people good support knowing all these things, everything that they fly with a little bit of tweaking can fly really, really good.
So for everyone out there who flies just FPV, says I don't need to learn line of sight, you're wrong.
I will second that. I will second that too.
The latest timestamp you will learn that is if your VTX fails. So
if you learn it and you can learn about balance. I mean, even using the CG calculator, everybody's like, "Hey, where is my CG? Where does it need to be?" I'm like, "Where it flies best." Well, where's that supposed to be? I'm like, well, when I manufacture 50 planes, one plane can be off by 1.5 degrees. You know what I mean? Well, just by blocking it and cutting the foam. You know what I mean? It's not a molded aircraft. So when you tell somebody it flies best at its perfect CG, and they're like, where's that be? Where is that supposed to be?
CG calculator is your
Start here. Start here. Go fly it. Get it tuned. Well, how do you tune it? Tune it until it flies good. Well, what do you got to do? But that's all. That's experience. So we try to help everybody on a one. So many times I sit on the phone on a Saturday with somebody, and I help people all the time as much as I can. I send them the right directions, and then I say, if you're out at the field and you're having a hard time, call me. And I do this all the time. Direct. I don't care where they're at, anywhere in the world. Call me. We get your airplane flying, and they call me. They'll end up go out and do the things that I said, and they come back and say, that's the best flying plane ever. You really helped me out.
So yeah, we already talked about the Mini Draks before, and of course, as we expected already, there are some questions in the chat. What is the future of the Mini Drak and Big Drak and Nano Drak in general? Because right now we don't get them anymore. At least the Mini and Nano, as far as I know.
You know what? Let's save that because we're coming up on a break in about 10 minutes, and I like to keep people around, and that's the reason why people are like, "How do I get one?" All right, but as long as we're talking about people and starting off, basically, because you and I mean, I'm listening to your story, and it's very similar to my story. I remember getting one of those control line planes for Christmas as a kid. And, you know, my dad crashing it in the first flight. And so the kids these days are starting off, I mean, they're starting off with drones, of course. So they're starting off with something like a DJI, the little Air Minis. They're like $500. You get something that flies, it has a camera, it's light and whatever else. But then after about, if you're somewhat decent pilot, you get bored of that pretty quickly, and then somehow you find yourself into race quads. So then you get in that whole field of race quads, and I mean, we've got a lot of people who are in their early 20s. I don't know, they all have girlfriends. Back in the day, when you're a young guy, you wouldn't have your RC planes out. Anyways, these guys go through the race quads, and then they figure out, like, wait a minute, I could build a plane with the same kind of components as I have with them flying with the quads. A lot of these things are very similar. So we get a lot of people who jump into the hobby, and they're like, okay, I want to build my first INAV plane. And, you know, we suggest the small Chinese planes to get them started off with because they're cheap and they're going to crash them anyways. And so they start off, I mean, people will ask, what should I start off with? And then half the people will say a Bixler, and the other half the people will say an AR wing. And then, what happens is once you get, and you want people to have their first experience on something that's small and easy and disposable. But this is something where, okay, this is on the pedestal. This was always, to me, it was always kind of like, when you look at the Mini Drak at $180, you would go, my gosh, that's pretty expensive for a plane, just for the frame. But now you're starting to see like a lot of the Chinese planes are coming out with $150 to $250 frames of their own, which are made out of EPL foam or smooth EPP or something like that. And one of the things I've kind of noticed is that once you get over 1 meter in particular, so that's around 36 inches, 38 inches, you are really starting to get a very different kind of flying experience. I mean, these planes don't hold up quite as well. They fall apart. They break very easily. The foam is not strong enough. So to the guy who is 1, 2, 3 planes in and looking at the Mini Drak, what do you have to tell them? I mean, why would you bring them over to the RiteWing nation?
Well, when it comes to the Mini Drak, it flies a little bit heavier wing loaded than a lot of the planes, and you can put lighter gear in it. I have seen guys put the smaller gear in it, but like you were saying, you get that different flying experience when you get over that 38, 39 inch wingspan. It's just the way it is. There's always been a thing out there saying bigger planes fly better. Well, depending on the conditions, yeah, they really do. I always found over the years, that's why I like the Demons at 40. That's why a lot of the super high performance planes are 40, 44 inches. We found that 1 meter size within that range really, really works well. And that's like, even for like the Nano, there's a reason why we made a little extra set of wings for the Nano to take it to that size. And if you actually put the Nano wings up to the Mini Drak wings, they're literally the same wing area. You have a slightly smaller fuse, a little bit slimmer part through the center of the plane, which allows you for, like you were saying, the smaller motors, the smaller gear that people might come with to be able to come over. But they also can jump into the tiny wings if they want. If they want the heavier wing-loaded small plane that really rips, you can do that with the smaller wings. But I had room in the mold when I molded the Nano that I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I love the Mini Drak. Don't get me wrong, I love it. It's still a different shape. This geometry is slightly different. It's not, the Nano's not a shrunken down Mini. It's kind of a rework of a whole nother idea. Still flies the same in the 40-inch Nano as the Mini Drak does, but the Nano has 1.5 degrees less of forward sweep. So it has a little bit different characteristics. On the lighter motor, it flies with lighter wing loading and allows people to still have a decent long-range plane and a same package where you can put a different wing in it for a small plane. So it kind of gives people, like, they can grow. You can still, for the price of the Mini Drak, you can get a Nano, but now you get 2 planes. And that was kind of my thing behind that. So you can actually take the Nano and the 40-inch wings and grab that and say, I'm going to start light wing loaded, start something that's easier to launch and still, maybe only use 3 or 4 cells and use that motor for that plane. And then you can take that motor, and add a couple cells to it, drop the prop and throw the 28-inch wings in it and get a whole completely different experience.
Mark, you had a question?
No, all good.
Oh, okay. So, raise your hand. Sorry about that, Chris.
No worries.
So, so that's interesting, because what you're saying then is, I mean, we get a lot of guys who have a lot of comfort with the starting with an AR wing, the 900 millimeter wing, and then the Mini Drak might be a little bit too intimidating for them. It's just kind of too big of a step up. So what you're saying then is the Nano Drak. Mark has a message for me somehow. Okay, sorry about that. So the Mini Drak is kind of too big. It's too powerful. It's, they might not have the space to fly it at. There's a lot of people who don't have. You live in Arizona, so you can get to open land very easy. Whereas in California, it's a little bit harder to come across. So but they like the AR wing and they want something like that. And you know, the AR Pro is kind of a step up, but it's, you know, some people have issues with it and they want something that they can go to. And I think that this is where it's like a perfect marriage. If you have comfort with a wing in particular, so a flying wing, something that is around 800, so an S800 to an AR wing, the next logical step up might be your Nano Drak then, right?
Yeah, the Nano Drak, what's really nice, like when you have the smaller aircraft, say in the Nano Drak, in the 40-inch wing size or the 28-inch wing size, you're putting this 22 size motors, 18 size motors, maybe 23 size motors in these planes. And the biggest issue with the durability of the aircraft is stored inertia. So the larger your drivetrains are, the more that tries to get out of your plane when you hit the ground. So if you're having a Nano Drak that has a 22 size motor on it and you're running the larger wings, your wing loading is a lot nicer than if you're saying running a Mini Drak, because the Mini Drak is going to run a heavier battery. You crash them, they're still durable. Your crash per dollar rating on all my aircraft is higher than just about any other manufacturer out there when you're talking about crash per dollar rating. But on the Nano, extremely well, because the spars are the same size they're in the Mini Drak. So now you have a super beefed up spar and a very light airframe. We kept them like that just to keep it super strong, and then also make it to where your crash per dollar rating is even higher than the Mini Drak is, because everything in it is a lot smaller. You still get great performance. Everything costs less when it comes to drivetrain, when it comes to batteries, and it comes to everything. And when the airplane hits the ground, it basically just tumbles and comes apart.
So Eric, can you walk us through the Nano Drak so you can show us? And also, this is a plane you can buy right now. So, which is...
Yeah. So this is the Nano, but it's a Nano with the boom kit.
Yeah, Nano.
And
that's like...
Yeah, this is with the 28-inch wings as well. And what Chris was saying with the spars, these are the two spars that as soon as you basically land a little hard, it's held on by Velcro. And the reason why it's held on by Velcro, which Chris told me this a long time ago, and it's actually, I mean, this thing goes 135 miles an hour. It's got a 2806.5 X-ing motor with a 6.4 prop on 6S. The thing is awesome, but it's designed to only be held on by this Velcro, because if you have a forward swept wing, the air is not rushing towards the back like this. It's rushing in towards the center, being a little forward swept. So you don't really have to worry about the adhesion of the wings. But whenever you do land, and if you land hard, the first thing that's going to pop, the wing's just going to pop out. And both of these wings, land or crash, they both pop out. And as what I have is on the servos, they all have servo connectors like right here. So it's not all the time that they pop out. Sometimes they'll get a little bit of separation on like in Florida where I am, there's a lot of St. Augustine grass. It's the thick grass, not always cut a lot. So whenever you land in taller grass, it'll separate the wings a little bit, but that's all that happens. I've only once broken a spar, not on a Mini Drak, on a Nano Drak, on a Mini Drak, and I was coming in at 100 miles an hour in tall grass, and it broke a spar. But other than that, I mean, I love this design, and literally, it's just held on by Velcro, and it's never separated during flight at all.
Huh, interesting. So that is the 28-inch one version.
Yep, this is the 28-inch version.
Oh, okay. And then
fairly light, and you'll okay. So there's spaghetti in here, but I run INAV in this one. So I have a 411 flight controller. I have a 45 amp ESC, and basically a series plug connector that does two 2200 3S in series, 5.8 video, and that's it.
That's and that thing just kicks by. And it has a Zing motor on there.
Yeah, it's got an X-ing or Zing, however you want to say it, or however it's properly said. I don't even know, but my Florida roots say X-ing, but it can be totally wrong. But 6.4 prop, and the good thing about this, I know Chris hasn't really talked about it, and we haven't gotten to the boom yet, but whenever you put a boom tail on a Mini Drak or a Nano Drak or a full-size Drak, this thing will not tip stall. It will not tip stall at all. I've full elevator back, cut throttle, and it'll just come down like that. So it turns it in. It doesn't make it lethargic. It's still as acro. It does have a teeny bit more drag than, let's say, if I took it off, it'd probably go 2 miles an hour faster, 3 miles an hour faster. But to have a park plane like this that you can stick in a Skypack backpack that Chris sells, you still sell them for like $50 or whatever you are.
Yeah.
But to have something that you can put in a backpack, kind of like a mini quad, and just ride your bike or a moped or in your car or whatever, and then just take this out and go fly. I mean, this thing is awesome. I love this thing.
Yeah. Well, like we were talking about as far as wing size, there's a Mini Drak here, and there is a 40 Nano. So when you're looking at the wing size and wing area, you literally have almost exactly, the sweep is different, but you literally have almost exactly the same amount of wing area, because you can see that the 40 Nano is actually bigger in wings. It's got a little bit of difference in it, but really, the thing is the sweep is a tad different. So you got 3 degrees of forward sweep on the Mini Drak wing. So you're literally getting, you're getting an aircraft that has almost the capabilities of the Mini Drak, but will fly on lighter gear. That was my main goal, because everybody in the quad market is coming across, like you said, they start on something small, something that they're flying quads, and then eventually they hit that wall where they want to start flying something in a different realm. And it needs to be fixed wing, and it needs to be durable, because the learning curve on flying fixed wing is way different. And if they can learn to fly on something that's durable, they just keep, they end up just keep coming back and buying more motors. I mean, I got people out there that will have like 4 Nanos, or I'll sell them a set of wings for a Nano, and next thing you know, somebody's coming in to buy another fuselage to put on there, so now they have 2 planes. And then next thing you know, they come back and they got a Mini Drak, they got 2 big Draks, they have this hardcore 44s, they have every type of aircraft that I ever sold. And there's not many people out there that have multiples of the same, but people in our area, in the RiteWing Nation and all the RiteWing flyers, most of them don't just have one. Almost everybody has 2 of the same model, which is crazy. The Chinese manufacturers wish they could do that. There might be a few people that do that, but they'll come in and buy 1 or 2 maybe. But these guys will come back, and I got people that have rows of planes. And you'll be like, why you got 6 Nanos? Well, I have one setup for this, one setup for that, one setup for this. And the thing is the reason is they can set them up to do so many different things on the same airframe, depending on what motors, what batteries, what cameras, what they want to do. I have guys flying out 15 or 20 miles on a 40-inch Nano Drak. Like you're like, and they're going efficient. Out, and they're going up crazy altitudes into the clouds and coming back, and you're like, I am like going, I didn't know the Nano had those kind of legs.
We might not have Kate Upton on here today, but I'm in love with what you just showed. That is insane. That was gorgeous. Mark has a question. You got him intrigued.
There's one thing that Erik mentioned, and we scratched that already before. As you said, Erik, the Nano Drak, if you basically stall it, that it will just glide down. I think that's one thing I really like about swept forward wings in general, because I'm not a total aerodynamics expert, but as far as I understand is that if the plane stalls, it will stall on the inner part of the wing first, and that shifts the center of lift basically backwards, so the plane gets nose heavy and just dips the nose. And right now the only swept forward wing I have is the Dart 250G from ZOHD, but it's the same principle. But what I really like about them is if you want to tune your plane to the best agility level, to the most aggressive turn rates and all that stuff, that's pretty easy on swept forward wings, because you just raise your throws on the elevons. You go full pitch up, and you will see, does it make the turn smooth, or will it start to pitch up and down with the nose? If it pitches up and down with the nose, then just add some more weight to the nose, for example, and try to get faster turns with this throw. And so you can go step by step to the most aggressive flight behavior you want to have if you want to really rip around very aggressively. And that's what I really like.
So we are past the 1 hour break right now, and so we're going to take a 90-second break so that we can get coffee, use the bathroom, do what we need to do, and then when we come back, we're going to find out how you can get your hands on, if you can get your hands on a Mini Drak, or any other Drak aside from the Nano Drak. But we'll find out more about the Nano Drak, and I'm sure how you can get your hands on one, that more than any of these things. So stick with us. We'll be right back.
Sounds good.
So we're back, and before we get into the continuation here, I just want to say that I want to thank my wife, because I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt right now, and little secret, we were supposed to she took some time off from work, and we're supposed to go on a little vacation, and she wanted to go down to Cancun, so she was planning a trip for Cancun, and then she realized if we catch COVID down in Cancun, we're not coming back into the country. So I will be vacationing starting after the show is over in the lovely state of Hawaii, in the big island of Hawaii. And I'll be about 80 miles away from Leslie Yagan. But unfortunately, for him to fly over to meet me is about the same price as him to fly to California and meet me. So it's not going to be happening. No planes, but I'm listening to all this great stuff. This is now I'm sitting here like, man, I got to get my hands on one of those Nano Draks. Those things are just awesome. The 40-inch wingspan. But the guys are telling me that there's even better stuff that, well, not better, but they have other stuff that's wonderful as well. So we can get into those as well. We should start off with the $1 million question, though. which is what is going on with the Mini Drak? What's going on with the full-size Drak? Are we ever going to see these again? So kind of like, what's the story behind them?
Well, I think everybody sees kind of what's going on out in the world right now. Everything's gone up in cost. I mean, it's crazy. Right as we were just getting the Nano kicked and it's rolling pretty good, all of a sudden, you know, the crazy economies and all this stuff starts having problems. And it's such a huge undertaking when it comes to buying minimum order quantities. And we actually have these aircraft molded in a facility out of Germany, which is a place where they make the Audi and the BMW and the Volvo parts. They make all of the molded car bumpers, the molded dashboards. So that this material is the same material. We're not making this out of Shenzhen. You know what I mean? We're not making it in a place where they're running EPO, which is they can buy EPO in a 55-gallon drum, stick a little bit of expansion stuff to it, and then expand it up huge. EPP to be made, EPP comes in a train car. And it comes pre-blown. About 90% of the bead is already expanded. So they get a train car that comes to the factory and doesn't weigh anything except the weight of the train car. You know what I mean? It doesn't weigh anything. Or they'll get a truck with it's full in the truck and they hopper it out of the truck. So basically it has a certain lifetime. It's super expensive. They can only run it in big batches. So it's just real expensive to take on and do. So to actually fit a whole order, you know, they want to do a minimum of a 2,500 units, you know, in a container to here. The shipping has gone up about 40% since. So, I mean, people are already paying $175 for a Mini Drak. Are they going to pay $200 for a Mini Drak?
Yes.
You know, I mean, I just got done. I just got done.
Let me help you out with that. Yes, they will pay $200 for me. Will they pay $250? You know what I mean? Yeah, probably.
But the problem is, the thing is it's like it takes I'll have to come up with about $100,000.
Yeah.
Order to fit everything with parts, to fit everything with balsa, to get everything here. And in the meantime, I just got done building a big 54 by 60 shop, and I just got done doing the Nano, which was a huge undertaking alone in itself. Right as all these prices and everything are starting to go up. So I'm just getting done taking care of the Nano, but if I sold Mini Draks right now and ordered that much, it would probably be 2 years, 3 years of sales before I actually started to see any profit off that.
Oh, okay. So
see what I'm saying? It's like, yeah. Nobody's going to make me 500 of them. Nobody's going to make me 600 of them. They're going to want to make 2,500 of them, and it's going to cost $50,000-$60,000 just to get the minimum order container here, and that's not the balsa, the glass, the you know, everything to go along with it, and then the packaging and the boxes and all the efforts and time. You're talking, oh my gosh, it's insane. And then I mean, the molds are paid off. I paid all that stuff's done, but you still the mold cost is still doesn't really matter now because the per unit cost and the minimum order quantity is insane.
I think part of the problem too is that the foam that you're getting for these, it's like a 1.9 pound foam.
Yeah. And they have to be, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say the ones out of Europe are so good. Like the Arthur makes for his like, we hate to push another plane, but the Rafex, we got the foam for the Rafex, and it's just like you can sit there and you can nail hammers with hit like just like a hammer. It's that good. It's just really dense, and it's really, so it's probably the same thing that you're using as well. As European, I don't know what it is. There are a lot of foam manufacturers.
It's a BASF foam.
Oh, really?
So yeah. And the thing is to mold EPP, if you mold it in less than 1.9 or 2.0, it has to have an extreme cure time. So if you mold it in the lighter 1.3, you actually have to take every piece and rack it, and then it has to sit in a certain temperature for a certain amount of time as it cures, so it doesn't overexpand. But if you mold it in the higher density, this process is a lot shorter and not as crazy. So we have to mold it in the higher density, in the 1.9, because you can't just take them out of the mold and stick them in a box because they keep growing. So they have to actually have this special cure time. So we have to mold it in 1.9, and then it's the properties of molding it and what it needs in 1.9 is a lot different than the other stuff. That's why you won't see people like a lot of, there's some now planes coming out of China in EPP, but you will see that EPP, they call it EPP, but if you actually compared it to the EPP I get in this country or the EPP the Drak is made out of, it's completely different. It almost feels like a bubbly EPO type foam with only just slightly more durability, but can rip real easy.
Yeah.
So, and then what you're really paying for when you're buying the BASF foam is you're buying an extreme environment foam that is made to be impact bumpers for cars and dashboards and door panels. So it's not cheap. It's really, really expensive. I can go to China and have some EPP stuff done, but no way. You've seen the AR wings. You've seen anything that says it's EPP coming out of Shenzhen or Hong Kong or wherever they're making it. It's not the same. They can say it's EPP. It might be some hybrid of EPP, but it's not the same as what we're running.
There's one question in the chat, just for clarification. What does that 1.9, 1.3, 2.0 values mean you talk about?
Like if you had a cubic foot and you weighed a cubic foot of this foam once it's been blown, it's 1.9 pounds. Is what it weighs.
Okay.
And they also have the metric measurements for it. But being in America, it's always, we always hear when we buy it and use it here, our manufacturers, they always rate it in USA weight, 1.9 pounds per square block.
I'm sorry, Darren's had a question now for quite a
Go
while.
ahead, Darren.
Yeah, no worries. It's just I was wondering if it's obviously sounds like the molded is out the question, but I'm sure in one of the photos you posted on INAV fixed wing group probably about 2 or 3 hours ago now, there was a shot of the roof of your workshop, and looks like a cut or hot wire cut Mini Drak. So is that a possibility to have hot wire cut versions?
Very labor intensive. You know what I mean. I originally made them all in hot wire cut, and the reason I would make them in hot wire cut is because we were developed products to be molded, but not to. I mean, you look at E-wings, they have amazing aircraft. You know what I mean? But he can't produce those in volume. You can't produce them in volume and make any money off doing that in volume. So maybe I could do a run and do them, like that's all hot wire cut. But you're talking me spending hours for a single aircraft to produce it, because you got to put all the channels in, you got to make every single piece separate. So that's not an easy thing to do when it comes to an end product and trying to sell it, because what do you got? How many pieces you got in there? You got a wing, you got you got 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, 5 pieces.
Yeah.
That's 5 5 separate cuts. 6, 7. There's 7 cuts on that.
This is the prototype Nano Drak from a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Wow.
And you can see the flat parts to it and everything else. So it's not exactly it's not as pretty, so to speak.
It's not molded,
it's not molded, so the curves aren't there. It flies amazing. Well, it used to fly amazing. This thing was. I love this plane. That's why I still have it. But I know it's kind of in pieces. But this was the prototype Nano.
Yeah, I mean, you cut the fuselage out, then you got to cut out everything in the fuselage. Then you got to cut out the saddles. Then you got to cut out all the channels for it. So when it comes to labor intensive, I mean, have you seen some of the Lighten models that we do?
Yeah,
Some of I have. Yeah, let me show you what I got here. I just got done with a batch of those hawk moths, and
Eric,
I can imagine.
Screen here, so.
I mean, you look at the time involved, just cutting this with the CNC hot wire, and then CNC tooling everything out of that, just to tool the stuff out of this aircraft takes like what, just over an hour just to cut all the holes in it once we're done.
Okay. So we should explain to people
that's a premium hot wire cut flying wing, but it's so labor intensive.
So you're saying it's both hot wire and CNC. So
yeah. So you're basically you're cutting out everything and making it precisionally done. But
wow.
I mean, look at that. But the way it weighs nothing. And what's crazy is like when I get the Drak aircraft made and I order stuff from them, they also make the block, this type of block in Germany. And every time I order like 30 of these blocks, which are extremely expensive. Like you see these blocks up here, I have stacks of EPP in my shop it's not heavy, but they're stored up high. A small block of this foam, the blocks that I have up there are about 4 times the size, but the small block of this foam is more expensive than the single block that's four times the size that I get in the USA. So this it's like 400% more expensive to buy a block of that silver Drak foam out of Germany. So when we make these, we try to get the yields to produce the most amount of aircraft out of the smallest amount of blocks. So I never usually make any aircraft that are bigger than 36 inches because I can't fit them within that same cut in that block if it's any bigger than this wing. So we make some really nice gems out of the silver. And like Erik has that one in front of him, that one fits. That's a demon foiled spec wing is what he has there.
Yeah. Chris calls it the Sportster, and it's lightened. It's got 3 millimeter or 5 millimeter lam all across it. Again, Xing motor, 2806 mini quad motor with a 40 amp ESC. On 6S, it goes 140.
Control surfaces hinged off the bottom.
Yep, control surfaces are hinged. They're basically they're flat on the bottom and then they go up. So you can tell it looks almost opposite of what it's supposed to look like.
What we're looking at?
This is the Sportster.
36-inch wingspan.
This thing is amazing, and look how thin it is. Look at my index finger. It's super thin. I mean, this is a 7-ounce little car weight. Look, it's the same. It's a half an inch thick, basically. But this is a great flying wing. But what I wanted to get to segue. Everybody. Before you
switch topics, Mark has a question. Let's let him get this question out.
Yeah, there's another question in the chat for Chris. What would be the minimum of orders you would think about doing another Mini Drak run? Is it at 2,500 or would you consider it earlier? So basically, they asked before already in the chat that if there would be enough pre-orders, would you then consider to make another run in general?
I would. If I could get enough 250 to, I did the math a little while back, and I calculated what my cost of the sparring, what my cost of all my parts were, and where I would need to be, because I can't at this point with the way things are going, having it be a couple years before I could see any profit and the put out of raw cash to get this going, because they're not going to put me on a payment plan. You know what I mean? It's like at this point in time. So I would say at least 300, 350 models I would need to do to get this, to get this going. And that's just being dead honest, because at this point, I think I got maybe 50 or 60 big Draks left, but we use them for utility.
Don't say that.
Work.
Don't tell everybody what you got.
But we use them for utility. We use them for utility work. You know what I mean? And the problem is originally I designed them for utility work. So, the Mini Drak was pure. They've been using them for utility work, but I did design them for fun. Like we are using them for FPV, but people have crossed them over and used them a lot for utility work. But the big Drak, I've been holding on to those because it would still cost me probably over $100,000 to order a minimum order of big Draks too. So we're sitting at a point right now where if I get these couple government contracts I'm working on over the next few years working really well and they keep coming back, then yeah, I would easily go back and get this stuff. But right now, everything's in such limbo when it comes to finances right now, just like you guys know, you're holding your pennies, you're watching what's going on, you're very, you're very attentive to what you're spending your money on right now. And the thing is I've been around for over 20 years doing hot wire cutting wings, which is, I think, longer than anybody else I know out there in this same type of trade. Everybody I either used to buy from when I first started are gone, and everybody that I've seen come up and worked alongside or had as competition are pretty much gone. There's a handful now that are still there, and we have to just penny pinch right now. And I wish I could, or I wish I had a big investor that came in and said, hey, I'll buy your mold from you and we'll split the profits, or I'll buy this and split the profits. But that's just that's not really gonna work right now. So I don't even know. I don't know which way to go with it, except to say, no, I can't really get in there and do that right now without having the backing. And it's not to say that the sales won't be there, but the output right now is you question it because you don't know where it's going to be.
So we had this situation come up with, I know Erik has this plane he wants to show us here.
I was just showing the Big Drak boomer, that's all.
Oh, baby, look at this.
Yeah, a 62-inch wingspan.
Yeah, this is on the ground. The wing's on the ground, and I'm 6 foot. So,
yeah. Yeah.
And there's one other thing that also came up in the chat from Henrik. He said, we need a continental Europe warehouse. Maybe you could collaborate with KO's Christopher Kleinschmidt and use their new one in Denmark. Shipping and taxes is killing sales in Europe these days. I mean, you talked about the shipping before of all the parts to the US, but actually, if you have a warehouse in Europe, you don't need to ship them twice over the ocean.
Well, I actually was working with FPV 24 years ago, which is that, and they, they ended up. Actually, when I did a run of Mini Draks, they got some sent to them, and I took kit packages and sent that to them, and they sold them. And they did that with the Big Drak. But I found that unless, they're a big store selling a lot of items. So I found that I send them parts, but they didn't get organized enough to put the right parts in the right boxes and keep things. So I'm in America doing customer support for kits that are being sold out of Europe that are missing parts. So it would have to be really, really, really well organized because, and then I have FPV 24 sending me messages saying that they didn't have these parts. Well, I sent them all. I have them all listed. I sent them. So it was kind of a hard time for a while because there was a lot of things that didn't get done because people over there are working in the stores and they're packing stuff, but they don't even know what they're packing. And it ended up being big frustrations because I get half a container of aircraft sent to them, within Germany, and then they can't get them out. And I finally they ended up getting frustrated with me, and I think I got frustrated with them. No hard feelings, but at the end, I think they had a few left, and they were blowing things out. And as they were blowing things out, people were getting those aircraft, and they're messaging me saying, "Hey, I just got these from FPV 24 at half price, but they didn't have this, and they didn't have this, and they didn't have this, and they didn't have this." So now I'm spending a bunch of money sending parts over for missing kits to stuff that they bought out of Europe. So I'm up for suggestions. I'm not saying it won't happen, but at this point, the as far as being reasonable and getting those manufactured, kitted, and sold again, it's kind of at a difficult spot.
Yeah, that's my. Just 1 second, Steve. That might be the reason why Henry came up with the idea to collaborate with KO, because then they could basically bundle the kits with their motors.
Yeah, I've talked to Chris. I'm good friends with Chris from Christopher Kleinschmidt, and we've talked about doing some joint projects together, and something like that could happen possibly if that was thrown out on the table. There were some discussions made, but at this point, with the way the market's been, I finally got my shop done about a month and a half ago. I actually moved out of my shop this time last year, ended up getting a big Navy contract, working all summer and all fall, building multiple huge 91-inch Big Draks for projects that they had doing for naval air warfare. I finally finished those up. I got hit with a couple more projects for some atmospheric climate researchers out of France. We finished that up in about February. But I started building my shop by hand after I had the concrete poured last summer in November. And I took all from November all the way up until about the end of April, May to get this shop done. And now I finally moved in. So about 3 weeks ago, we are up and running for the first time efficiently in a year.
All good, Steve.
Okay. Yeah, it's all good. Okay. So one question I had was, I didn't know really a lot about what happened, but Ready Made RC had a point about, I'd say 12, 18 months ago, where they had to get pre-orders to get enough inventory in to sell their planes. And so somehow, I remember it happened. I remember that was pretty successful for them. I don't know all the details. I didn't buy anything at the time, but that was something that seemed like it did work. So was that something, if you could say 250 people, it's really hard to sit there and say, I want a Mini Drak, but then when it's like, okay, well, here's the deal. You're going to put down $200 to $250, whatever it's going to be, and you're going to wait 6 months before you get it. Do you still want it? And then a lot of people are going to be like, well, yeah. And so, I mean, you could probably sell 500 Mini Draks if you had them in inventory over the course of 12 to 18 months. But if you have people come up with money up front and not see it for 6 months, how realistic do you think that is?
I've had a lot of requests for Mini Draks. If I had Mini Draks right now, I know I could sell a whole bunch of them. That's not an issue. I have people come in and say, yeah, we will, I had them start a couple posts at least in the nation, but not on INAV, but they started in the nation. And I think, what do they get to, like 140 or something like that, where people have said, I would commit right now to 2. Okay. So just kind of fishing, we threw some of those out there, and that's within a group of 3,000 people. I don't know how much the INAV group has. And then that was only 150. That was only 150 of the people. And I found usually if you have 150 people that will say, yes, we'll do it. Out of 150, you might have 75 people that'll come in, maybe 50, 60, 100, maybe not. You won't have that many people that will come in and actually do that. So I'm up for suggestions. But if we could get, 300 pre-orders in there, in the queue, and people are lined up, I'll start talking to my manufacturer, of course.
So what price would they be? Would they still be 180? Would they be 200?
I would love to try to keep them at the same price. You know, I mean, they went up on my last order of them. They went up about, I think it was like 14% in cost last time I ordered. Same with the Big Drak. Big Draks went up, and I try to keep them still at the same cost. But things are, a box that used to cost me $18 to ship to the East Coast of the United States is now $56 to ship that same box that was $18 3 years ago. To ship to Europe, I used to be able to ship to the UK, and it would be about maybe $65 or $75. Now it's about $105, and then to the Europe, it's like $110, $115. And it's same thing with Australia. It's gone up. The costs of shipping have gone up. One thing about the Nanos and the Minis is I can put a bunch in one big box. And working with somebody out of Europe that might want to be a hub, that would want to be able to make sure that things are in the right boxes, but somebody would have to want to do that, because I can't be in Europe packing boxes. And what we would ship out of Europe would be just a container full of foam. They don't make the kits in Europe. The only thing they make is the foam parts, and then I actually manufacture all the kit parts here, or I gather them and package them here. Okay. So I would have to take big boxes of packaged material that are prepackaged as kits and send them over to Europe, or I would have to set up whoever is in Europe to actually get the parts made in Europe. There's a couple ways about it. It's just a matter of organizing it. So the Mini Drak is phenomenal. It's probably one of the most fun and best sewing, best-selling FPV aircraft and line-of-sight aircraft that I've ever flown.
And I know, if you want to take 20 minutes, we can put Henrik on, and he'll explain why you need to get a Drak and how good they fly. I mean, I've heard it from him before, and it is a 20-minute speech, and it starts off with like, you don't understand, this is what it's like, and then by the end of it, you're like, okay, this is really special. I guess it's one of those things that once you get it in the air, there's nothing else like it, is what I hear.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I'd love to have more stock. I think I have maybe 2 or 3 here of my own personals left. And
the thing that's really sucking right now is like we are getting the INAV 3.0 is just it's bringing a lot of people into the hobby. It's just kind of like, this is the INAV that INAV 2.0 should have been. And so all of a sudden people are like, yeah, I can get my plane up. It's flying great. That, and we also have a combination of Facebook is now pushing our group out more towards people who are don't speak English. So they want to have a huge, Facebook is trying to do a multinational push right now. So we have a lot of people with a lot of interest who are coming in from literally all over the world. We get them from Indonesia, China, all over Europe. And so it's like one of those things, after a while, you want to get your hands on one of your products. So
that's not a problem. I still have a good amount of nanos here because we ended up having to buy 2,500, a massive amount of the nanos when we did it. So I have plenty of nanos.
This is a weird time right now because it's like, usually it's like, we have a recession and my money's kind of funny and I can't buy toys. That's, and like I got plenty of inventory and I had no buyers. We have the opposite. We have a lot of buyers and no inventory.
Yeah, I have plenty of, like I said, if you still want a Mini Drak type of experience, but you want it on lighter gear, the Nano in the 40 is insane. It's absolutely awesome. You can go straight from your copter gear right into it. You could get almost 90% of a Mini Drak experience out of a Nano with 40-inch wings.
We're going to switch off the Nano Drak and the Mini Draks here in a second and talk about some of the other stuff.
Okay.
But good. I want to open it up in the group. Mark's going to be watching the group, and let me know if there's any questions about the Mini Drak and the Nano Drak and all that stuff before we get into the other things, because you have other amazing planes that don't get quite as much exposure, so we should be talking about those as well. Mark, you have a question?
No question from me.
Okay, no question.
Oh, my symbol's still on.
Okay. Yeah, please remove that. Okay, so Eric's going to show us one of your other planes, and he's going to talk all about it.
Well, the first thing I wanted to say, though, this is a two-part thing. Before the Hardcore 44, I do want to say that the Nano Drak, I know Chris is pushing that, and I push that as well. I love the way the Nano Drak flies, but I can say, without a shadow of a doubt, the Nano Drak with the 40-inch wings flies like the Mini Drak. It really does. The only difference is you're not going to put a speed setup on a 40-inch wing Nano Drak. It just doesn't have the capacity for the batteries in front because the fuse is a little narrow. But the flying experience is 98% of what the Mini Drak is with the Nano Drak with the 40-inch wings. That being said, I wanted to show you guys the unsung hero of the RiteWing collection, in my opinion, the Hardcore 44. This was given to me two and a half years ago, and this is my second Hardcore 44. I turned it into a line of sight. There's no camera or anything on there. I still have the VTX, but after seeing Chris fly line of sight, which I've never seen him fly FPV, I've only seen him fly line of sight, I realized that I had to up my damn game. And I will probably never get to where he is, but I can fly line of sight now, which I'm extremely grateful for and humbled watching line of sight pilots. But this thing, still the same, X-ing motor, 1800 kV on 4S with a 7x6 prop. It goes 100 miles an hour, but the thing flies on rails. It's been bashed and beaten up, and not to mention the bashed and beaten up part, so to speak, but a Hardcore 44 is the best, in my opinion, regular swept wing in the RiteWing lineup. It is the OG. Yeah,
it's precise. It's so precise. Yeah. It's not. When you roll it, it's completely axial.
Yeah,
I can go down the runway at night with lights on it and do perfect Same altitude roll all the way down the runway, do full rolls all the way, rolling circles around the runway as it's coming at me. Because I make them all lit up. I make them lightened, and we put lights in them, and I fly them at night because I can see them even better at night because they're lit up. I'll make one wing green or blue and one wing another color, so I don't ever lose my orientation, and that thing's insane. Absolutely insane.
Before the spec wings came out and before people were racing spec wings, people used to race this. This was the go-to race wing, and that I have heard people racing before everybody came out with the spec design. And the spec wing is another thing, just like the Sportster. Those things are amazing. But this is the OG, in my opinion. The Hardcore 44 is the absolute gem, I believe. It's
been around since probably 2006. We called it the IYF because you fly it right in your face. That was the name of it. And then that's when it was only winglets only. And then we changed it. We started doing FPV. We changed it and did the center fins, more fins on it, and then we ended up shrinking the outer winglets on it. But in the back again, it's called the Hardcore 44. It's called the IYF 44. I've sold more of those than any other flying wings, hot wire cut, and anything else I've done.
So I just want to say that 48 inches is 4 feet, which is 1,219 millimeters. So this thing's probably somewhere 1,170 millimeters in size. So sorry about that. So some people are metric watching. So that's a good size. That's an awesome plane as far as the size.
Yeah, it's my favorite. It's my favorite traditional wing plane that RiteWing or that anybody makes, in my opinion.
Yeah. My friend Julian in France, I think Julian Metz is his name, de Metz. He came back one day and he could hardly speak any English at all. He came back to me one day and he said, I have your analysis of what this plane is. He's like, it's the 4-wheel drive Subaru of the flying wing world. All the power, turns on a dime, doesn't slide out. Basically, he came back and that's what he was telling me. After he driving high-performance cars, he's like, that's the one it is.
What size prop does it take?
I have a 7x6 on here now. But I'm flying 4S and an 1800 kV. I've seen people make these speed wings and put in runners on them. I've also seen cruisers, and people put INAV in here as well. There's a few people in the nation that fly Hardcore 44s with INAV and go up and fly the friendly skies, so we should say, under 400 feet.
Yeah, 7.5 prop or lower. I usually use a 6.4 at super high RPMs, or I'll use a 7x5. Erik does a 7x6. Once you get much over in 7-inch in diameter, then you're actually getting a prop that's a little bit too big for the airframe, and then you're dealing with torque.
Yeah, and I live in Florida. Air is super thick. I know some people think that's a hoax or not, but I know a lot of people, like say Chris, for example, will tell me, "Oh, you should." This is what some of the wing racers back in the day, like four years ago, were flying the Hardcore 44 with a 2217 motor, and they were using 6x5 props and 6x4s, and I can't do that in Florida. I have to have either a higher pitch or a bigger diameter because the air is thicker here. Takes a little bit more oomph to get it going. So it just depends on where you're at, where the density is, where your elevation's at, and everything else.
It's actually a pretty good point. The three of us are Americans, but Chris and I live somewhat close to each other because I live in California and he lives in Arizona. So we have kind of an arid climate out here, but we do have the ocean current, the ocean breeze coming off. In Arizona, you've got really, really stinking hot days. Like it's probably over 100 degrees today in Arizona. But it's a drier air, and also you get a lot more lift. So you have a lot more probably thermals and things like that where you live, right?
Yes, it's extreme. I think I'm looking at my screen right now. It's 100 degrees, and it rained the last couple of days, so it's almost 100% humidity. So it's crazy like soup out here right now. But usually it's only 6 to 10%.
Right. Yeah. So Florida is more like that, where it has more of a humid environment, and so it's a different flying experience, is what you're saying. Then each one of these planes. It's kind of interesting when you test these because you're testing them in different environments. And besides the United States, we take up a good portion of Europe as far as just our land mass versus what you would get in the UK. So, I mean, we talk about different countries in the UK, and you're like, oh yeah, it's more dry over there, and this place it snows all the time over here. Whereas here in the United States, you know, we have different microenvironments out here. So, interesting how you guys really go through it and check these things out. You give them to different people, because if it flies well in Arizona and it flies well in Florida, it's probably going to fly well no matter where you go.
Yeah.
Mark,
right.
It's actually interesting that barely people talk about weather conditions like humidity or temperature when they do some things like speed records or high altitude flights and all that stuff. I mean, it was really driving me nuts. I'm doing FPV wing flying for 3.5 years now, roundabout. And one of my first planes I still have is an AR wing that has a speed setup. And when the weather is right, it makes around 190, 195 kilometers per hour on 4S. And once I just flew it and I thought, why is it just hitting 170, 175 suddenly? I've not changed anything on the setup, but it was a really, really hot and dry summer day when I tried this, and I just couldn't get it to speed. But when I built it and when I did the speed record, it was actually a spring day where it was very cold still, and it went much faster than before.
Yeah.
So you really see that difference.
Next time you guys want to feel like what it feels like to fly in Florida, wait till it gets done raining. Like as soon as the drops stop, launch your wing. That's exactly, because we have 90% humidity here the whole year round, basically. So it's tough. It's definitely something that I had to come to grips with. Not starting off with mini quads, but as soon as I got into wings, I started noticing it more and more, and I was like, wait a minute. All these people are doing what you said, you know, doing speed records, and they're like, oh yeah, my wing hit 125, and I'm like, how come I got the same setup as you, but I'm only going 111? Like, what's the deal? So it plays a major role in flying for sure.
Sounds awesome. All right, so what other planes have we covered? The whole RiteWing Nation line of planes, or we're missing anything?
Oh my God.
Missing the Spade.
Okay.
There's many different aircraft. Currently I think I'm doing a super spec racer, which is a 36-inch spec racer. Then I do a version of it in either white foam or gray foam that is fully lightened, that actually has fins. That's like a little 36-inch version of the Hardcore 44, basically. It has a little, you know, it's not just winglet only. It ends up having center fins on it and all of the doodads, kind of like Erik had on that Sportster he had out a minute ago. The one I just showed you in silver, that was a super spec, but I make that in white, and I also make that in silver, which is basically, you can still drop like a 4S22, 4S2400 in it, 2600 in it, and still put a light motor on it. But you don't have to worry about it being a spec racer, because it's more like a miniature Hardcore 44. It's got center fins on it. So it's a lot like that one, but it actually has a different airfoil. It has the spec airfoil on it. So if you want something that's like a Hardcore 44, the HC44 like Erik was showing you a minute ago in the red, but you want it slightly smaller and you can run 22 size motors on it, would be that silver plane that I had just shown you.
Sorry, Erik, you didn't say anything, so no one could see it. You gotta say something. The mic.
Oh, sorry.
The camera switches when you speak. Yeah.
Sorry, this is the same type of foam and the lightened that Chris was talking about. This is Sportster, but he was talking about the super spec, which Chris has up there now. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. So this basically would be your super spec, which is a modified spec wing, but it will have the center fins on it. And this is in the silver foam. I think I have 2 or 3 out of the last batch. I also make these in white. Same way, cut out. Slightly cheaper because the foam is cheaper, but this foam is like really, really stiff and really, really durable. So once in a while I do a few batches of these and they're crazy, crazy durable. That would be the super spec, which looks like a Hardcore 44 with its fins and everything on it, except it's only 36-inch wingspan instead of 44. I make a handful of other. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the hawk moth, which is like a night flyer model. Hold on one second.
Yeah, the hawk moth that he has, his daughter named it, but it's a super slow flyer. It's lightened. It's a bigger wingspan, but still light. And that would be a good night flyer, and putting INAV in as well, because A, you can do the LEDs, but plus you would have that return to home function and everything else.
Yeah, so basically the hawk moth is like a 48-inch wingspan. It's fully lightened. I think I got a 2208, maybe 1800 kV and a 7.5 prop on it. And then it runs just a 3S 2100 in it. So if you want something to put lights on it at night, this thing flies at 23 ounces. So it's 23-ounce flying weight, which is nothing. It doesn't like wind. It likes when you go out in the evening and you want to just a still evening and you want to do rolling circles around the field, or you want to do crazy stuff right up close to you. That's what I built this for. So bigger wing loading, bigger wings for lighter wing loading. So it's super light, but it doesn't weigh anything. I think I was even balancing at first like on a 3S 1500. So you got a 48-inch wing, not really, you could do FPV on it. You just got to balance it. But I made it for an evening time night flyer, or an in-your-face type of a line of sight flyer for still days where people, you can crash it and tumble it. And what's nice is it doesn't have any heavy weight in it, so it doesn't have any inertia that's trying to beat its way out of the aircraft every time it hits the ground. So, and then it will literally turn within its own shadow. So this is just a fun, specialty light plane, but at 22 to 23 ounces flying weight, that's crazy. The wing loading is absolutely nothing. And it flies on a 2208 with a 7.5 on a 3S 1500 or 2100. It's crazy.
That's
so
insane.
It's fun because you could take these out, set up a couple pylons with friends at night with some LEDs on the pylons. Everybody can have a beer and drive and fly in circles and knock each other out of the air. It's like, and then when you crash them, they're so light they don't beat each other up. So and you don't have all you basically just got a really super simple, high performance small plane that weighs nothing, with really light wing loading. So that's it's something that we do the hardcore 44s like that all the time, but we usually fly them heavier and we fly them faster. We're not doing slow circuits and stuff like that, like we are with this one. So it's just kind of a little bit of a different take on a night flyer that allows you to fly super light. Then you got the Recon and the Z-Con, which I think Adam Glennis has been flying that Z-Con lately. I don't know if you've seen some of those videos of some of that stuff ripping through the canyons he's been through in the Irish countryside, but those are like insane. 56-inch wingspan, big plane with a really nice speed envelope. It will go fast, it will go slow. Knock yourself out, put whatever big cameras you want into it, or make it sleek and slim and sporty without putting all that in it, and just fly it as an FPV plane without trying to capture a bunch of video. But I know everybody pretty much wants to throw that hero on there and capture that crazy video that plane's capable of.
Yeah, I like that video that Adam did. I've got a Z-Con right here that I'm looking at.
Z-Cons are awesome.
It reminds me of some of the stuff that was in the very beginning of FPV, when the people were doing that with the Z2s, like when Trappy was doing some of that stuff with the first Z2s and some of the Zephyrs out there that they were doing that with. So basically that's what this aircraft, it's a blend of an older Z2, and then I took another high performance glider airfoil and blended it out to the wingtips. So it gives it a little bit more of a higher speed profile than the Z2, but it also gives you the Z2 stability center section that the Z2 had on it. So it's basically just a blended airfoil from one end to the other.
No, I was just wondering, all your kits that you build, like your wings and everything, have you ever taken those without a motor on the slope and tried them, seeing as you like slope soaring?
Actually, a lot of the stuff we start on the slope. Let me show you something here. Sloping is a huge thing for me. Here's a 60-inch 60-inch pure slope curve.
Nice.
And this is a TL60, which it's not even available unless you ask me for it. Control surfaces are hinged off the bottom. You got gaps on the top. Everything's buried.
It's beautiful.
So this is what they call TL60, but this is a pure sloper. And then I think I got 4 18650 ions up front. And then in the middle, there's a huge bay in the middle. It's got the capability on the center of gravity of you flip that open, and it's got 4 or 3 steel bars you can put in the middle of it.
Nice, nice. Plenty of balance.
So when we go to the slope, depending on what the weather is and how it's blowing, and we can take this and drop it off in a very light form, or I can drop it off super heavy. And just a matter of opening it up and dropping it in. So, but sloping, a lot of the stuff I've done over the years starts with sloping, learning the airfoils, and then applying some of that over. That's what basically where the Recon came from, is it's taking the Recon airfoil and then dropping a sloper airfoil on the tips of it. So I've been able to kind of blend a sloper airfoil with a lifting airfoil to create something super fast but capable at carrying a bunch of heavy gear at the same time. So again, that comes from just years of cutting and knowing what airfoils do what, coming up with an idea and then applying it. But sloping is a huge part of what I do. So we're not just cutting airfoils and throwing gear in it. We've actually taken stuff that's usually been flown that we're make happen and perform.
Cool. No, I love sloping. I think everyone needs to try it. It's awesome.
You can go out and slope in one day. Like these right here, you literally have to do that every 90-minute break because you don't have to land. You can fly all day. I can go out on one of the big mountains out here and slope for an entire day. That's like getting 1 year's worth of flying experience in an entire day.
Eric wants to show something.
Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I just wanted to say this right here is my prized possession RiteWing. This is my favorite wing that I've ever owned from RiteWing. It's a Demon 40, but it's an old school Demon. It's purely glassed, and like Chris was talking about, all the servos are buried. Everything else, it's got an in runner. It's got a mega in runner. It runs off of 8S. It does like 190. But this plane right here is just, this is my prized possession. I can't make it a shelf queen because it flies so damn good. I got to fly it all the time. But yeah, and I think this was part. This not a TL56, but this is the starting. Where did this come from?
That's either a TL airfoil, or it's a Demon airfoil. Yeah, I'll be able to tell by looking at it, but we've used a couple super high-speed airfoils over the years, and one of them's that might be a TL42.
I think that's what I heard it was. Yeah,
super fast.
Yeah, this thing it's amazing. But sorry, I had to bring out this beast.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for going through all the planes today. I mean, what I'm hearing from you is Chris is a businessman. He's got a brand new complex. You're getting orders, sounds like, from the government. So it's keeping you busy and it's paying the bills. He's shaking his head yes. But he's a hobbyist, true, and you want Mini Draks. He wants to get you Mini Draks, but you need to come up with a plan in order to make that happen. As far as if you can get a bunch of people together with money in their hands saying that they're willing to do it, he'll sell you let's just put it this way. The next 300 people with $180 in their hands will get yourself a Mini Drak in 6 months. Yeah, and Chris is all for that. Yeah, okay, so that's the deal. Money talks. It's time to get the list together. It's time to do it. You can organize yourself on RiteWing Nation. And get the list going, and let's see if we can get some orders together and get at least one more good production done. It's a strange time right now for the industry, but it's not gonna be like this forever, and at some point it's gonna go back to normal, and you'll have inventory and everything once again. So but man, guys, you did awesome. Eric, thank you so much for explaining everything to us as far as the user experience.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having us. And the one thing I do want to say is maybe Chris can put out his email link or whatever, and see if people. I mean, I only have one Mini Drak, and I would love 1 or 2 more as well. So I'm in the same boat as everybody else. So if everybody can kind of get together, just what Steve's saying, and maybe email Chris if he wants to give out his information or put it on the Nation. Hopefully we can get it done because It's a
we
great
can talk about it in
plane.
the group as well. Like, and like go to RiteWing Nation and kind of like
For sure.
go over there. We'll put out a message to everybody. Like, hey, if you want your Mini Drak, this is how it's gonna get done. It's gonna be done in the RiteWing group. And so, go sign up, get yourself on the list. In the meantime, do not write off the Nano Drak. I mean, I was just like,
not at all.
Yeah. I'm
buying
like,
Nano Draks can help. Yeah, I was gonna say, buying Nano Draks can help buy Mini Draks. I got to get rid of those too. Those are all income, and the income from the whole business covers all the future orders. It doesn't really matter what it's coming from, but I do have a lot of them, and I bought them for the people that are coming in with the smaller gear. We have sold a lot of them, but I had to buy a lot of them because the price points when I bought that volume got lower. So I justified that. I could have bought half that order, but the price was going to be about 25 to 30% more per aircraft. So I doubled the order last year, and then all of the stuff hit. And then next thing you know, I'm sitting on a lot of them and spent a lot more than I thought I should have spent. And we have a lot to sell. We have sold a zillion.
Maybe a group blowout on those things.
I'll blow them out. You guys send me an email. RiteWing, RiteWing @hotmail.com.
RiteWing.
Yeah,
we get a group buy together, and we can get that sounds awesome. I like that idea a lot, and especially with those 40-inch wings. I mean, you got me at 40-inch wings. So perfect.
Don't cheap out. Get both sets of wings.
For sure. And
that's a Mini Drak. This is a 40. What's the difference?
Oh, look at that.
There's hardly nothing.
There's nothing.
I don't want to throw Chris under the bus, but I
love the minis.
He was doing a deal in the nation. He said if you bought a RiteWing Nano Drak with both wings, he would send you a Sky Pack for free.
I'm already doing that.
And the Sky Packs, they were $250 to start with, but it's $50 shipping, and you can fit both wings and look at all those Sky Packs. So
I have about 150 Sky Packs. They're over $200 retail. And I said, if you pay for the shipping on them, you can buy a Nano and get a free Sky Pack. So you get a $200 backpack or more.
And he puts the Nano inside
of it for free. I'm going to blow them out. Just
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. My gosh.
The Sky Pack backpacks are insanely awesome.
But wait, there's more.
I still have my Sky Pack, and I use it all the time.
Awesome.
I have 3 that I use.
Yep.
All right, so that's awesome. So okay, that's a deal. So what you're looking at for the 2 wings and the Sky Pack and all that good stuff, just this is foam. It's not any electronics, right? That's like
but I can add some of that, whatever I have available at the time. We can talk. I can add film. I can add I have motors. I can add, I can get servos going. But I think I did that free Sky Pack thing a couple of weeks ago, and I think we sold 60 Nanos and gave away 60 Sky Packs. And they're free. You might cost an extra $50 or $60 shipping, but you're getting a $200 backpack that's insanely amazing for $50 extra for the shipping. That's it. And then the Nano comes in it.
Oh, dude, I'll just come over and pick it up from me. I'll try that.
Yeah, I'll give you 2 of them.
Dinner. It's awesome.
Damn.
Well, I had a friend that started the Sky Pack business years ago, and he started it. And the problem is the shipping has gone up so expensive that he can't ship them to vendors anywhere in the country without it completely eating all the profit. So he told me a while back, he says, just take them from me if you can package them. He goes, UPS has caused such an issue for me. I got to get rid of them. And he just gave them to me. He goes, sell them with your products.
Awesome.
I'm like, okay.
Awesome.
So he wrote off a loss on it because he can't ship them anymore. Because you can't make 30% profit on something that's costing you $70 or $80, $60 to ship somewhere in the country that used to cost $18. It used to cost $18 to ship that to the East Coast. Now it's $60 to ship it to the East Coast.
That's my Sky Pack, and when it rains, you got a little bag rubber and everything. It's a backpack, and the best thing about the Sky Packs, I'm sorry, and I know Chris didn't mention this, but the dude who built it, his buddy, or the dude who made the Sky Packs, his buddy, he designed it to be an overhead luggage in an airplane, so it fits the dimensions, and you can fit a Nano in it. And a radio. And
I don't
batteries.
know. It might not fit the dimensions now because they're always changing those dimensions. But originally it did. But I tell you But when I go traveling, I throw it inside. I take a garbage bag in the SkyPack, and when I get to the airport, I take the garbage bag, wrap it on the SkyPack, put some zip tie on it, and throw it into the baggage. And you could literally stand on it, and none of your stuff gets damaged.
All right, I sold it. Get it to the airport. I'll have my radios. Just get something ready for me to fly while I'm in Hawaii. So, that's awesome. And this is awesome. I mean, guys, this has been just really, a great show. This is better than I dreamed it would be. Just kind of like so much cool stuff you guys are working on, and I'm glad that you guys are really positive and pumped up about INAV, and we've got something that is, somebody who's coming in who flies quad. They want the speed, they want the quality. We've got a direction to go. And I will say this, if you're spending $150 on an EPO foam plane out of China, it's time to start thinking about where you're going with this hobby, because for just a little bit more money you can get a hell of a lot better plane. So
and it can crash 20 times.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. The price point was, in the past at least, always a no-go for me to get a Mini Drak in the past, especially because I just had the money. But today, I mean, I'm just building a 1,200 euro long range plane, so I think I might afford a Mini Drak 2 now.
Yeah, right.
We'll put you on the list.
Just for the record, too, that orange and black Mini Drak right behind you looks very, very nice.
I love it.
Yeah, I love it. It's brilliant. I can't talk about it because it's got a vector in it. So
rip it out.
Yeah, right.
It's awesome. But I've got another one up there that I'm going to put INAV in, and then a friend gave me another one which was really beaten up, which I may get some of the plank wings for.
Dude, you're bogarting all the Mini Draks.
Yeah, I have one. You have three. What's up?
One of them is really beaten up. I had to cut the wings off to try and fix it up. Lovely planes. Awesome planes.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Everyone's waved by. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Bye, guys.
Thanks.
Later.
Thanks.